Great to see boxing in those days, Steve. How good was Chris Finnegan? How good would he have been in today's climate?
Well, it's a very different sport. You know, these guys were fighting 15 rounds. They were different men. I mean, he won the Olympic title. He beat the great Kissoeth in the final, who was a great fighter. And you saw that fight there. That was the second with Frankham, who he'd known for years and years and years. In their first fight, Frankham managed to beat him. He had 2 fights with John Conte. One was points, one was cuts, which he screamed the place down about Finnegan. I mean, the big thing was, Andy, is that you know, as good as these fighters were back then, okay, they very much belonged, and they fought in a style that belonged to that day, to that time. Right now, Chris Finnegan, you want my honest opinion, he'd be a champion for a long, and I'm going to keep going for a very long time. He'd be a major champion. He was a terrific fighter, a great character. And him and his brother Kevin, neither of them won world titles. Kevin never even got a world title fight. At least Chris did get a world title fight against Bob Foster. At least he got the fight.
Let's have a look at that fight with Bob Foster.
Thank you, Bob.
This is the sort of fight I imagine, Steve, you would have loved watching.
Yeah, I can remember watching this, and I'm not saying I can remember exactly where I was watching it, but I can remember watching it. I can remember seeing the end, which I don't think we see here. Let me just explain to you how this fight penetrated the world boxing, okay? This was in 1972. In 1971, the Ring magazine gave out their fight of the year. It was a little affair between Ali and Frazier. In 1973, the Ring magazine gave out their fight of the year, and it was a little affair between Foreman and Frazier. And in 1972, they gave that fight, Foster against Finnegan, their fight of the year. So we're not talking about, oh, was it a good fight? You know, back then, the Ring had weight. It wasn't owned by Golden Boy. It wasn't a PR division. It actually had some weight. It meant something. The Ring magazine declared that that fight, which ended brutally in the 14th round, when Finnegan got caught and knocked out. And he said at the time, he said he worked as a bricklayer, Finnegan. He joked about doing his altitude training for the Olympics in Mexico City. He said, I did my altitude training up a 32-rung ladder. And when he fought Bob Foster and eventually got done by Bob Foster, he said it was like being hit by a scaffold pole, and trust me, I know what it's like to get hit by a scaffold pole.
Indeed. What a great character, and a sad loss to the sport.
Yeah, you know, I think he's only 65 years of age. I think his brother Kevin was only something like, you know, 61 or 59. Far too early. Loved to drink, Chris. You know, he drank. You know, he wasn't afraid of sinking a pint or two. In fact, when he used to train with a guy called Freddie Hill, we saw was this bespectacled guy with bald head who came in at one point in that fight. He used to give him Guinness after they trained. After they trained and sparred, they used to go downstairs and have pints of Guinness.
Old school stuff, fantastic.